in all of these countries around the world, in the developing world, you have this big gap between what the law says and what actually happens in reality. So it's a big problem, because then in that space, in that grey space between what the law says and what reality says, you get things like corruption, injustice, all of these awful things. That's where they live. The work that I do and what International Bridges to Justice tries to accomplish is to bridge that gap, is to create what we call rule of law in the legal world. And what that means is that when the law is passed, that law is then enforced and actually it breathes in the real world. We've found that in a legal system, the weak link is always the criminal justice system. It's kind of a litmus test for the rest of the whole system. And if you can make sure that the criminal justice system is working well and that justice and rule of law exists there, it really does set the stage for the whole ecosystem around justice. And I think the reason for that is because the criminal justice system is the justice system that deals with the poor. And often the poor are the first people to be forgotten and left out of systems. Last year we started a new country program in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And one of the cases stood out for me, this kid that was in prison, and he had bought a pair of trainers. I can't remember how much for, like $3, $10, something like that. And those trainers turned out to be stolen. He didn't know. He just bought them off a guy in the street. But because they were stolen, this kid was arrested, obviously too poor to afford a lawyer. So he was not found guilty or anything. He was just in prison waiting for a judge to decide whether, or to actually look at the evidence or the lack thereof. And he was in prison for 3 years. So that's a huge chunk of his teenage life. That was his adult forming life that was spent in a cell for something so ridiculous. There's no reason for that. Unfortunately, it's cheaper, easier to just think that someone is guilty and make them guilty. So when we find a case like that, and the way we find a case like that is actually where we train these lawyers to go to prisons and to ask the officials there, like, hey, who's here? You know, what are they? You know, what's going on? How many people have you got waiting here for trial? And these lawyers, they then go in with all of the training and support that they've been given before through the courses and the tools that we've given them. So part of the training and part of the model that we have in the country is to actually put these people in a room together so they can actually talk. And by people, I mean the lawyers, the defenders, the prison officials, the police, the judges, and the Ministry of Justice. And we'll literally sit them around a table and we'll talk. We'll talk about what the situation is like. Not in an accusatorial way or anything like that. It's just so that we can get the reality out in the open and say, hey, you know what? Let's fix this. I envision a world where human rights are actually rights, and that equally people are entitled to them and you don't have to pay for them. I envision a world where we take the price tags off.